Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. Hello, everybody. I'm so thrilled this is always so fun for me to just pop on with a woman that me and my team have had the esteemed privilege of supporting. And I just get to kind of pick Erica's brain today and say, what's changed? Why do you think that's changed? How do you think it's changed? What made all the difference? So before I move on, I wanted to tell you a little bit about who Erica is. So Erica Mattison is an executive coach and certified career advisor with a passion for helping leaders create meaning and positive influence in the world. Her holistic approach is informed by her degrees in psychology, public administration, and law. She has coached hundreds of clients over the years, from former elected officials to nonprofit leaders to for-profit C-suite executives. And for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Maraya Brown. I am a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert. I have been supporting women for now 23 years as a nurse practitioner since 2007 and 100% online since 2019. And Erica is in one of my programs called the Women's Vibrancy Code, which is a year-long deep dive, and it's supported by a multidisciplinary approach. And so we get to learn a little bit about what's changed. So Erica, welcome.
Thank you so much, Maraya. It's a pleasure to be here.
You look beautiful as always.
Thank you. Likewise. I like that we have our matching.
I know, right?
Exactly. Greens on today.
Give me an idea when you first decided to join the Women's Vibrancy Code and receive support from me and the other master coaches. Can you remember back then, what were you struggling with? What wasn't working at that point?
I had been listening to your podcast for probably a few months when I joined one of your workshops. And one of the reasons I wanted to join that workshop was that you sent an email that exactly spoke to how I was feeling. And it was creepy. It was like you were inside my head. And I said, wow, okay, I need to go see what this workshop is about. I don't remember, exactly what it said, but it really resonated. And I think there were a few things about it that caught my attention and that have really been relevant throughout my participation in the program. I joined several months ago, so I'm just past the midway point of the 1 year. So it's nice to have this moment with you to sort of look back and look at the present and also look ahead a little bit. So some of the things that jumped out at me were around being a go-getter. I've kind of always been somebody who's really had a lot of passion and different interests and loves to make a positive difference. So I tend to move at a pretty fast pace because there are a lot of things that I want to get done. And I think your message was probably talking something about, being at this pace, really wanting to get things done, being a doer, maybe something about being a female entrepreneur or business owner, which I am, and really wanting your health to support that kind of life and to live an amazing life. And there were some things that were getting in my way in terms of my health. And I was having frequent headaches. That had been a chronic issue for me for many, many years. And so that was something I was grappling with. I never quite understood why I was having so many headaches. And I'd seen different specialists, different doctors that tried different things. And so that was a no pun intended, big pain point for me. And then there were other things too. I love to dance, and I was having some like, kind of stomach issues that were like getting in the way of me being able to feel as comfortable as I wanted and as good as I wanted to be able to, dance frequently. So that was another area. As a business owner, it's really important to me to be continually learning and growing and be in a supportive space. And so that was something that appealed to me. This kind of notion of being like a strong woman and tapping into my femininity at the same time was something that was like really a pretty new idea for me. And so there were a lot of things that caught my attention. And then when I came to the workshop, it really resonated as well. So I was excited to learn more about getting to work with you and then the whole team of folks who are part of the program.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you were listening to the podcast, which for those of you that aren't familiar, it's called the Women's Vibrancy Code. I'm so proud of it. And you acknowledge yourself as a go-getter, someone that was hungry to achieve in the world, but also that your health needed to support that life that you were trying to create. And there were things in the way. Frequent headaches for years, which were a problem, stomach issues that were influencing your hobbies and the things that you loved, and then also longing to be part of a supportive community with other ambitious women that were wanting to make their health a priority.
Absolutely. Well summarized.
Okay. And as you've progressed in the midst of the 6 months, have there been any new things that have popped up where you were like, wow, I didn't even realize that was something that I wanted to change? But now, like, as the lights have turned on in the room, I'm recognizing that's also something that I long to have change.
Yes, lots of things. A couple that come to mind most readily are around up-leveling my life. So you have a questionnaire you provide pretty early on in the program that is around basically, is your life in like coach or business class or first class? And it gives this whole huge list of all these different items. It gets down really into the minutia as to, like your socks, very specific. And it sort of, can feel like, wow, this is overly detailed. And at the same time, I think there's really value in getting into the minutia because it got me to look at things as small as my socks or what have you and say, yeah, like, are these things working for me? Why is it that I made these decisions? Was it because these were the cheapest? Is it because somebody gave these things to me? Is it because, or did I proactively choose these things? And do I really love using them on a day-to-day basis? Are they really serving me? And maybe they were serving me at one point, and now maybe they're not. And so taking this time to really do this inventory of my life in these different areas, I think that was really beneficial too, because it wasn't just your wardrobe or just your kitchen or just this or just that. It was really pretty holistic, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And I think that doing that exercise early in the experience was really beneficial because now if I'm ever tempted to say, oh, I still have so far to go, I can look back in that and say, yeah, but look at this. I felt like a number of areas of my life were sort of in that, coach class previously. And now just a few months later, I've been able to up-level so many areas of my life. And so to have that as kind of like a baseline and to benchmark with, I really appreciate those kinds of tools. So that's one thing that comes into mind in particular.
I love it because, so many women, we can all do a better job at prioritizing ourselves. Even yesterday, I had a call with a woman, and as we whittled it down, what really it was about was having to remember that I have value in that particular scenario, to go, I am worthy of, do I walk around with socks that have holes in them? And why am I not buying myself new socks? Is it because I'm not investing the time? Is it because my priority is somewhere else? Is it because I don't want to spend the money? Is it because I buy new socks for everybody else but not for myself? And that goes through all of these different categories to take an account of, let's really look through the weeds and how am I treating myself? Okay. So then headaches, have those changed?
Yes, absolutely. And one other thing I would add to the previous answer is also around sleep, which
Yeah.
is related to headaches. But like you helped me stop having my phone in my bedroom. And that was
Mm,
big. That was like really a new thing for me. I already did not have a TV in my room for a long time, but the phone was in the bedroom. And through your program, I trained myself to stop having my phone in my bedroom. I
yeah.
realized that a lot of my later night phone activities, scrolling and so forth, were just really not serving me well. And so I've actually replaced that with journaling. And that has been such a blessing because I use an approach that helps me focus on gains from the day and also forecasting gains for the next day. And that can be something as basic and important as I took care of myself today, right? It can be I hydrated, I went for a nice walk in the park, I had some good meals, whatever it might be. But just really taking that moment every night before going to sleep to take stock and also to think about what's important for me for the next day. And it's just 3 items of each. If I want to add more, I can, but the idea for that is 3 of each. And so that's been really big. And then I'm happy to talk about headaches as well.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you brought this up because particularly in your scenario as an ambitious woman, multiple degrees, one of them being a law degree, like not a simple thing. Often for a woman like you and in your scenario, we don't have a heart. We don't. It's easy to turn it on. The challenge is how do we turn it off so that there's rest time? And so that simple move for you to take the phone out of the bedroom, now you're not scrolling, you're not getting work done, you're not sending emails, you're not hopefully thinking about work, you're actually giving your body and your adrenals and your nervous system that pause to journal in your scenario and celebrate and think about what you want in the next day. I love it. So yes, what about headaches? What changed with
Yeah.
headaches?
So I was never really very aware of things around blood sugar until I joined your program. I don't know
Mhm.
why. It was not something that I was educated about. And through your program, I've learned about the importance of keeping a stable blood sugar throughout the day, having healthy snacks ready to go. So if I have a lot of coaching sessions and not a lot of time in between necessarily on some days, I can
Mhm.
just go grab a handful of nuts and a handful of berries or something like that. Also having the adaptogen elixirs, which you teach us, how to make and all the different variations we can have with that. That's something that I've been enjoying experimenting with. And it has helped me so much to just be drinking that throughout the day. I just, will make like a big jar of the different powders and what have you, and have that just for the whole week ready to go. So all I have to do is just heat up my water, throw in a spoonful of that, emulsify it, throw it in my travel mug or what have you. And I'm like ready to go. And that with some nuts or something could be such a great snack. So, learning those kinds of strategies have been incredibly valuable. And so I think that's really helped prevent headaches
Mm.
because I used to notice that if it had been several hours and I hadn't eaten, I would tend to get a headache, but I didn't quite understand why. And I feel like I'm still learning, but I'm more aware now than I was just a few months ago. And I also have been unlearning some practices. Sometimes like people in our lives might lead us to believe that it's actually bad to snack. well, it's not bad to snack. It can be unhealthy to snack depending on what it is you're putting in your body. Like if it's just,
Mhm.
candy all the time or soda or what have you, that's one thing. But if it's nuts and berries or, an apple and a piece of, some protein or what have you, like that can be a really good thing. And
Mhm.
so a lot of this has been this sort of learning new ways of thinking, new practices, and then implementing them and having the support of the community that you bring together so that we can, sort of be in the sandbox together of trying out these different things and then seeing what impact it has on us. And I appreciate that you teach us that while there are certain scientific truths and so forth, we are individuals with our own genetics and our own, environments and needs and so forth. So what's going to work for one person you're working with is not necessarily going to work for somebody else. And you're
Mhm.
very honest about that. I appreciate that. And I'm learning a lot about myself and how my body functions and what works for me as I'm part of your program.
I love it. Okay, so the headaches went away, and along the journey, you've learned a lot about blood sugar management and a personalized way for you to eat and the timing and what to eat that likely has then better influenced the stomach issues. So, stomach issues at the beginning, there was a great deal of bloating. I remember hearing you were really uncomfortable. And my understanding is that has resolved. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's been so much better. I was feeling really uncomfortable, like in my stomach area for quite some time. And we identified a number of reasons that could be the case.
Mhm.
Some had to do with medications I was on, some had to do with dietary decisions. And I've made a number of changes as part of the program. I'm still I'm still working on some things, and some things feel
Mhm.
more challenging than others to change. But there were some changes that I was able to make pretty quickly, like actually cutting out cow dairy entirely. Within, I think that was my first month in your program, actually, because I joined around the time of Thanksgiving. And I remember having a conversation with you in one of those first group sessions around cow dairy. And I was just popping the lactate. I was always taking lots of medication because I had known for several years that I was lactose intolerant. And so I thought, well, if I just take lactate, then, problem solved and I can eat
Right.
ice cream and this and that. But it turned out I was still not feeling great. And so you really pushed me to, you challenged that and you said, well, you're not feeling good. So how much longer are you going to do this to yourself? And so I share that with all these people I talk with, friends, family, whatever, when they're doing something and it really seems to not be working. Sometimes I'll just kind of tell them about our experience together and I'll say, this coach I'm working with really helped me by saying, hey, how much longer are you going to continue doing this thing that is really not adding to your quality of life? In fact,
Yeah.
it's quite subtracting from it. And so really since then I've barely had any cow dairy whatsoever, and I've just replaced it with other things,
Mhm.
and I feel so much better as a result of that. And then there've been some other changes too, like from some tests that we did, we identified that I have a gluten sensitivity. That one for me has been harder to let go of. So I have substantially reduced my gluten intake. I understand that might not resolve the issue, but baby steps for
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
And
then some major other, changes have substantially reduced my caffeine intake. I barely have any caffeine anymore. I used to have
Mhm.
the equivalent of a cup of coffee a day. Now, I might have a couple cups of green tea a week, but it's very minimal.
Yeah.
And then things like much less alcohol than before. So, other changes like that as
Yeah.
well.
And the big thing that I hear is you're feeling better and you felt like it was a personalized approach. That does
Right.
not mean that everyone is going to take out dairy or everyone is going to be seen to have a gluten sensitivity or that everyone I'm going to tell you to cut out your caffeine. In your scenario, we're doing baby steps in some scenarios and one thing up front was pretty apparent. And you're like, yep, you're right. Let's cut the dairy out. And wow, what a difference it made. But then you also mentioned reducing meds.
Hmm.
Are you open to sharing at all what other meds have
Sure.
gone out the door?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I had been prescribed a medication, sort of there's some potential concerns around things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, a family predisposition for some of these conditions and so forth. And so a statin had been prescribed, and that's something that, we've been exploring through the program, what lifestyle changes I can make so that that's not necessary. And so I'm really excited to see the progress that I'm making as I continue to get blood tests pretty regularly so that I can be learning more and more about how my body is working, what's going on. So I think that I'm making a lot of progress on that, and I'm looking forward to continuing to learn about that and continue to make changes that are going to help me in that regard so that I don't have to be dependent on medications for that. Using more natural approaches, plant-based supplements and so forth. Also, I was on a birth control implant, which I recently had removed so that I can see how I'm feeling not being on that. This is something that, Maraya has a lot of, you have so much knowledge about. And so I've really been able to learn from you about, what some of the impacts of that might have been on me. And I have to say, I had concerns, I had been on different kinds of hormonal birth control devices for like many, 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 many years for a bunch of reasons. And one of which was that I used to get really severe headaches, right? And cramping and things like that. So that was part of why I went on that to begin with, or other forms of birth control, the pill and so forth, many years ago, when I was, much younger. And now that I had that implant removed, like that discomfort I had in my stomach area has almost gone away, almost immediately. It was within, I think, like a couple days, I started to say, wow, gee, like my stomach just doesn't have that like really heavy, like bloated feeling to it anymore. So that's been one of the positive side effects. And that was a big deal. So I'm still kind of exploring what it's like to not have that. And then like there've been a bunch of changes that we've made as well that have just really had a humongous impact on my energy levels, which was big for me, because when I came into your program, I was experimenting with intermittent fasting, and I was often not eating anything until like maybe noon or 11 a.m. It kind of depended on the day and what time I had stopped eating the night before, because I do tend to stay up relatively late, and I do tend to kind of want to eat, probably later than I ought to be. But I was, not eating for the first few hours that I was awake. And I was just exhausted by like noon. I just had no energy. And so then it was just like a struggle to get through the day. And then through the changes that I've been making in your program with the adaptogen elixirs, within the first hour or two of waking up, staying, I think I've been better hydrated, just different changes with the, making sure I'm having healthy snacks or meals every few hours, things that are well balanced, it's made a humongous difference. And now I really don't have like barely ever any just issues with my energy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm hearing new ways of taking ownership of your contraception and experimenting with taking the hormones out of your body that might have been causing some of the not so great symptoms. And so far, it's been a really positive change. And then on top of it, significant changes in energy levels throughout the day, and lots of moving pieces here. It could be decreased inflammation. It could be diet modification. It could be the supplementation. It could be the reduction in meds. It could be mindset shift as you're up leveling and treating yourself differently. So that's awesome. I love it all. And then also back out traveling again. I think about the VIP day that we did in that book that I read.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, to see you back out with your wings open. Are you open to sharing it all about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I love getting to go places that I've never been before and explore and meet people from all over the world. And I also love going back to places that I've been that I really enjoy. And this includes domestic travel, international travel. It just really lights me up. And so, I've been really enjoying experiencing different places, doing my work in different settings, because I left my job last year and went all in with my business. I now have that ability to do that. Whereas before, working in a job where I was expected to be in person at least a few days a week, I just didn't have the same kinds of options. And so part of what I was looking for through your program was to really figure out, what is this new life, figuring out things around my schedule. We've talked a lot about like, what is a rhythm? What is a flow? What is a pace that feels good? And then that is going to depend, right? And for me, like, I like to go with the seasons. And so if it's really hot in the middle of the day, for instance, then I might not want to be outside then. I might want to be doing, working with clients then indoors where, with air conditioning or what have you, or, and so just experimenting things with my schedule. And part of that's mindset. And part of that is more kind of business coaching. And it's a mix. And that was something that also appealed to me about your program was it wasn't just business coaching or just women's health. It was really a more holistic approach. And that's what I was looking for at this point in my life, in my early 40s, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's looking to live a really vibrant, awesome, impactful, fun life. These are the kinds of things that have been really helping to make a positive difference.
I love it. So, newfound flexibility in your schedule, back out traveling, more energy, no headaches, gut, in my mind, gut dysbiosis, but discomfort in the gut resolving, new ways of treating yourself and new forms of confidence. When you think about all of the different aspects of the program, so you've got me, the sexologist, the mindset coach, the trauma release specialist, the nutritionist, you've attended a virtual VIP day. What aspects do you feel the community and what was it? I wrote it down. You had said, I thought it was so beautiful. What was it? The sand in the sandbox together. What do you think has been some of the pieces that have really helped you move the needle the most?
I think, an overarching theme that comes up for me is around empowerment. I think I used to feel very apologetic about so many things about myself. And I'm learning to become less like that and to more just own myself, own my situation, whether it's things around requests with food, if I'm at a restaurant, or communicating with, people I'm with about like what I'm going to be eating or not be eating and what have you. Things like that, where I felt sort of uncomfortable before sort of saying anything about that. Through your program, and as I've been making these changes, I'm feeling much more comfortable just communicating these things to people. And, to your point, I can bring food with me to a gathering or what have you, if like I don't think they're going to have things, that I'm going to eat and so forth. So that's a very specific example. But
and what
yeah,
aspect, which coaches or which aspect of the program itself do you think helped you along that journey of owning yourself in your situation? Do you think it was the calls with Scott? Do you think it was the modules? Time with me? Is there anything that you can go like that aspect and that support was part of the catalyst?
So many pieces, but I would say the modules, the worksheets, working with Scott on mindset, working with you directly, working with Katie on nutrition. Yeah, there've been several different people who've been part of the
All of it.
experience. Yeah, and
Yeah.
also
All of
like I have to speak to learning from other participants. That's something that I've
it.
really valued. It's, we get pretty candid with each other, and I think like we all treat each other with respect and love and kindness, which is so
Mhm.
important. And like just getting to ask questions of participants who maybe even the alumni. I've reached out to some people who are alumni and said like, hey, I saw that you were part of the program, like, are you open to connecting? And they've welcomed me with open arms, and they're doing such just different interesting things in the world,
Mhm.
and I'm so excited to get to know more of them and learn from each other and support each other. So
Mhm.
I appreciate that aspect. I actually really like that you have people who are kind of like different points in the process and have been working with you for different lengths of time, because then they have, you know, just different levels of like experience and familiarity with these topics, and they can bring
Yeah.
those into the different interactions and lend
Mhm.
support and guidance about, their journey and what has worked for them. And so I think that really enriches the experience.
I love it. And the community piece, that feels really big, particularly amongst women.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to talk with one another and learn from one another and hear each other's stories. And that's so fun to hear that you're also connecting with the alumni and that they're open. And there have been so many fascinating women with really interesting lives. Um, I heard you say you'd struggled with headaches for years. There was likely a lack of energy for years. Can you just share, like, what had you tried before, and what do you think was the
Mhm.
missing link to
Mhm.
have not found these same results
Yeah.
versus what was different, what changed when
Mhm.
you said yes to this specific form of support?
Mm. I mean, part of it is awareness. So the education, there were just things that
Mhm.
I just didn't know. And it wasn't because I hadn't tried. I mean, I had looked online many, many times for how to prevent headaches. And they basically all say stay hydrated, sleep, and a couple other things, like
Mhm.
manage your stress and so forth. But there were aspects that I was not seeing in the sort of common uh, wisdom on this that have to do with like the blood sugar management and
Mhm.
things like that we've really been able to get into much more through our work together.
Yeah.
So that those nutrition pieces in particular, and I think like building certain daily habits and like the adaptogen elixir, it gives me like a go-to, it's
Yeah.
kind of like these just creating these routines, these practices where,
Yeah.
I'll just put it in my travel mug and bring it with me if I'm going out for a few hours. So like, I know, okay, I'm going to be getting these healthy things, in me for the next few
Yeah.
hours, even if it's just like bit by bit by
Mhm.
bit, like just gradually throughout the day. So really building
Yeah.
it in. Yeah.
One of the big things that I'm hearing is so not everyone in the program does this, but you're one of the women that really does get into the portal, watch
Mhm.
the modules, you are taking in the information and you love learning.
Mhm.
And I think about most health settings and many coaching programs, there's not necessarily the time and the personalization. You go in and see your provider, it's 10, 20 minutes, here's your prescription. But
Mhm.
and I used to be a provider in brick and mortar, and I wished I had more time with patients. And so now you
Absolutely.
have that expansiveness, like you said, a holistic approach with a bunch of us to help you see it from different angles, understand, get in, watch the modules, watch the past recorded calls. And you're an individual that you really want to understand why.
Hmm.
And so you've been able to have that foundation to apply so that the needle actually gets dislodged and moved. What
Yeah,
about
absolutely. Yeah.
um, who do you think you've needed to become? Like, how has your thinking changed
Mm-hmm.
in order to actually receive the changes that you've received?
Mm. Well, that word receive that you just used a couple of times is part of the key, because one of the things we learn about through the program is around strengthening the muscle to be able to receive. And that's something I'm fascinated by, because sometimes it feels like, well, who would I even receive things from? That can be a question, I think, especially if, one lives alone, one, does not have children and what have you, if you don't have a spouse, if a lot of things, right? And so it's really like, yeah, who would I even receive from? And it's such an interesting topic for me, because we can receive from ourselves. We can receive from people we interact with just when we're out and about. We can receive, from people in this program, and just, there are so many ways to receive. It's kind of available to us all the time if we choose to notice it. And so for me, that was like a pretty big mindset shift. It was like, oh yeah, receiving, that's a thing. Okay. It was almost like this funny thing happened the other day that made me think of it, where I'm working with, I'm doing some work with somebody on my business, and they sent me this little gift basket, kind of this like thank you little box with a couple things in it. And I had the package just kind of sitting unopened for a few days before I even opened it. And before, I wouldn't have really given that much thought. I would have just thought, oh yeah, I'm going to open that later. And then I kind of thought of you, and I thought about receiving, and I thought, oh my goodness, I have this gift from somebody sitting here, and maybe I'm trying to give myself something to look forward to later by not opening this, and kind of like, oh, what's in the box? I don't know. And sort of, delaying it and having it to look forward to. But then, sometimes what if there's food in there, and then it goes bad because you didn't open it? So it's not always good to wait on things and save them for later, And so after I realized this, I was like, oh, I better open that box and see what is in there. And, there were some lovely little, natural candle and some lavender bath salts and things that seem like they don't have synthetic fragrances. So I was super delighted. And they were my favorite fragrance, not fragrance, but scent, natural scent, which is lavender. And so I was really excited about that. And then I realized, oh yeah, and now I can send a thank you to the person who sent this to me, and they can receive my thank you. And so it is this cycle, this virtuous cycle. But I had been withholding the joy for myself in a way, because I was like, oh, I'll open that someday.
Yeah. Oh, I love this example. And I mean, we could take a deep breath and receive oxygen. We can get in the shower and receive the fact that we have hot and cold water. We can open our eyes and look at the beauty outside and receive that our eyes are able to see. I mean, yesterday I went to fill up the gas tank, and here in Oregon, you can't fill it up yourself. It has to be filled by someone else. And he's like, here's a little gift certificate for a free drink inside. I didn't want to go get a soda, but I could take that pause and take the moment of, yes, I will receive this. Thank you. And so yes, even if you're an individual who's not married, doesn't have children, you can receive from yourself. You can receive from the elements. You can receive from the people that are out in the world, someone who smiles, someone who gives you a compliment, someone who sends you a gift. And I'm very similar in that for so long. And I'm still something that I'm actively working on. When I receive a gift, often I open it, and the first thing that I think of, it's just such an ingrained pattern, is who can I give this to? And I go, where is that coming from? No. I'm still working on my own blocks around receiving there. And so, okay, I'm hearing that the mindset shifts, there have been lots of them, up-leveling how you treat yourself, prioritizing something as simple as your socks, but also acknowledging, I'm going to actually look in the mirror and see how I receive, because I've been asking for whatever it is that you're asking for. And often we ask, and then we just don't take note that it's right there in front of us, or the person that's there to gift it to us, or whatever it may be. And our job is simply to receive. So thank you.
Mhm.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. That abundance mindset is just, you know, it really is something that I'm cultivating it. This program has been helping me.
Mm.
And when we believe that there are still plenty of good things to come, it makes it easier to receive because we don't feel like, oh, I have to save this for,
Right.
you know, it's like, no,
Right.
there'll be other nice things, whether it's, you know, a
Yeah.
compliment or a hug or a gift
Mm.
or whatever it is, right? It's not
Yeah.
always like tangible or something physical, but you know, just believing like, yeah, there's like lots of great stuff to come, lots of wonderful
Mhm.
experiences. I don't need to sort of like hold on to this and not open it and that kind of thing. So I think
Yeah.
that that all ties in with developing more of an abundance mindset.
I love it. So my last question for you, and I'm aware of time, is so okay, new flexibility, back out traveling again, more energy, headaches gone, bloating gone, new ways of understanding how to eat, new ways of treating yourself, new ways of receiving. How is that impacting who you be in the world? How is it impacting your work? And how is it impacting your hope for the future?
In 30 seconds or less. Wow. Yeah, that's such a big question. Let's see what's coming up for me. So, you know, one of the things that we've learned about a lot in the program is this differentiation between using the mind and using the gut or the intuition.
Hmm.
And one thing that I've been cultivating and also helping my clients cultivate through my coaching work and my advising work is, you know, paying attention to when is something coming from the head, thoughts, worries, thinking about the future, negative self-talk, whatever kinds of things might be going on, right? And then also giving a chance for our intuition, sort of lower down, like our gut, to also get to have a say in things. And so it's
Hmm.
not that we're just entirely guided by our brain. You know, you do a lot of awareness raising around the gut brain connection, which is fascinating, you know, and I think just like I still know only a little bit about that. There's so much to know about it, but it's really interesting to think about, you know, if you just like in my coaching work, I'll have conversations with people and they'll be very like in their heads, and sometimes I'll kind of say to them, okay, and so those are the thoughts you're having, and like, what is your gut telling you?
Hmm.
And then they'll say, oh, well, my gut's telling me like I want to do, you know, fill in the blank. And I say,
Yeah.
okay, well, like let's also create some space to have that exist, right? And
Right.
not just have it always be fully in the brain. And so that I think has been one of the biggest um just one of the biggest mindset shifts for me is
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like listen in, that whole idea of listening in,
Yeah.
and ideas around, you know, rhythms and um, the moon phases and just so many pieces like this where it's like, yeah, everything doesn't always have to be like this, you know, productivity machine. It can be this, okay, how am I feeling, and what's, you know, sort of having these different times for different things. And maybe
Yeah.
next week is going to be kind of a quieter, more internal week, and maybe last week was like really out and about engaging with lots of different people and going to lots of events, and like every week doesn't have to be like that. And so, you know, for somebody who in the Enneagram, I'm a 7, which means like I love being out and about and performing and having an audience and all of that. And I also really thrive when I have a sufficient amount of quiet, alone time built in for things like writing and curating a beautiful place to live and so forth. So
Hmm.
these are a few of the ways that I feel like I've been most impacted by our time together so far.
Yeah. And it's not only changed you, but it's changed how you coach and how you be with other people and how you, so then the hope for the future, what I'm hearing is to spend a little bit more time out of the logical productive lawyer in you, and to allow some spaciousness to listen into your body and your intuition and your femininity. And when you allow yourself to explore the possibilities of what that might change for you in your future with your work, with your relationships, with the life that you cultivate, what do you think might be, like, if you were to guess
Sure.
around the corner into the future, what do you think that's going to change?
I think it's going to involve doing more of what I want and worrying less. I bought this shirt a couple years ago that says something like, worry less, live more. And I just, like, yes to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, moving away from lots of the negative self-talk and so forth. And I think, like, when that starts to come up for me, it's like, okay, so what kinds of support might be out there in the world for me, and not trying to feel like I have to do everything myself, figure it all out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But like, okay, so who do I know who might know somebody who could maybe be helpful to me around this topic? And just like acknowledging. And I think it's been so valuable being part of a program with people who have different specializations, is it helps make me more aware that, oh yeah, there are people who have trained in this thing and they know a lot about it,
Yeah.
and so, like, there's nothing wrong with hiring experts who have just really learned a whole lot about an area, to serve as a guide, to serve as a coach, a mentor, a teacher, maybe some combination of those. We don't have to try to figure
Yeah.
out everything on our own. We can rely on other people to help us solve some of these mysteries and just basically make life easier and more joyous.
I love it. I love it. So what I'm hearing is the future looks like I get to do more of what I want and what I love, and stop trying to be the expert in everything, and allowing others who, like, that has been their expertise, and allow myself to receive their expertise rather than trying to do it all myself. That's so potent. And I feel like it goes back to where we started, which was this go-getter, but wanting health to support that life. So you've up-leveled your health, and now the headaches and the bloating and the low energy is out of the way. So
Right.
you get to really go and do you, but along the journey, you've also started realizing ways that you can prioritize yourself in new ways. You've changed your thinking and become more flexible. And now you're saying, right, I don't have to do it all myself. I don't have to be perpetually in this logic and
Mm.
figuring it out space. I can actually get really good at what I do and love doing because I want to, and receive the support from other experts in the world that that's what they are great at. Um, any other parting words as we're finishing up that you'd like to say to anyone who's listening? And maybe they're exploring saying yes to receiving, maybe I've offered them a personalized package. Maybe they're simply just listening to this and feeling inspired by your story. Any parting words?
The word should is something that is, often part of our vocabularies, and something that, like, I definitely have used at many points in my life. And I know a lot of people who are heavily attached to the word should. And one of the things that I've been exploring more and more through my time in your program, working with you, is around letting go of that. Just like, yeah, I don't really need that word. It's just usually rather unnecessary. And so getting comfortable with, like, yeah, like, that could be a good option, or, just other ways of even thinking about it and communicating about it. And really understanding, if I do feel like I should do something, where's that coming from? Why is that? Is that somebody else's story from 40 years ago that I have adopted? Or, is that even older? Like, where is that coming from? And how relevant and valuable is that for me today in this moment? Because if it's not really serving me, then it might be time for a new story, so a new narrative. And so I think it's important to appreciate and recognize the past and, our ancestors, and at the same time, not feel like we have to continue to do things exactly the way that they did them or the way that they saw the world. They came from a different time and they had very different life circumstances. And so maybe things that have been passed down through generations, some of them aren't super useful to me in a day-to-day basis. Right. And so kind of just checking those stories and then coming up with kind of my own version of things that make sense for me. I think that's been something coming into my own identity is, I guess, what I'm saying. And it sometimes feels funny, oh, why am I doing this when I'm in my 40s? Why didn't I figure this out 20 years ago? And it's it's a process, right? And we can use help to figure out some of these things.
So what I'm hearing is, for the individual who's listening to this, and you've picked up the shoulds based on your family, based on your lineage, based on the healthcare providers that you've seen. You should be on these meds. You should be doing this. You should not be doing that. You should be thinking this way. We didn't even talk about sexuality, but you should be seeing your body or should not be seeing your body in this way or that way, to be able to say, wait a minute, if I let go of my shoulds and instead I replace it with could, if I could do this thing or that thing, is it what I want? Is it serving me? Is it who I want to be in the world? Is it a lineage that I want to carry on and continue? Is it a way of being that I really feel super empowered when I listen inside? Or could I find another way? And if I'm going to find another way, who might be that resource to help me explore the coulds that are different? That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, I think, it really comes down to feeling empowered, again, to, that theme that I shared earlier, to make choices and to make choices that are good for me. And that, I called a client out the other day because they kind of self-labeled as being selfish. They said, well, selfishly, and then they said something that they wanted or they didn't want. And I said, I noticed you use the word selfish, and I'm just curious, what's that about? And they said, oh, I did. And they weren't even actually aware of it. And then when we talked about, where that was coming from, I said, I think that's part of why you are having difficulty achieving what you want to achieve, is that you actually feel bad about it. You feel that it's a selfish thing. And so, again, my awareness being raised around some of these things through our work together is then something that I've been able to share in my work with others. And so it has this really beautiful ripple effect.
Right. What if we embraced selfish and instead started questioning selfless? Since when is selfless a good thing? to let go of self? This is the only body that I'm going to live in this lifetime. This is the me. What if I fully embrace me? Anyway, I'm aware of time. Thank you so much for your time, Erica. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for the courage to invest in yourself. And you've been someone that has really stayed in and taken the steps. You've engaged in the community. You're consuming the content. You're showing up and applying it. And I just applaud your progress. And we're only halfway through. We still have 6 more months to go. And, you've seen there's some women that are now renewed on their 3rd year. And so who knows, maybe you'll be a life or 2, and I'll be here to support you every step of the way.
It was a big investment and I was committed to making the most out of it. So, thank you for your support, and I'm excited for continuing to learn and grow together.
Yeah. There's sometimes power with skin in the game.
Absolutely.